Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, y'all? Happy Tuesday. It's February 3rd, 2026, and I'm in particularly a wonderful mood because for the first time in I don't know how many days, it's over 30 degrees outside. Which means inside my home doesn't feel like -2. All right, so I'm in a good mood. I don't have on no sweatpants right now. My legs is out, my arms is out in my own home. Imagine that. And I feel amazing. So there's that. So what I decided to do is to continue to channel that heat and that fiery energy through Sagittarius intensive reading. Now, last year, in Sagittarius season and throughout the rest of the year, I shared that I felt inspired to continue on with doing pop-up Sagittarius intensive readings here and there, not to alienate or exclude anyone, but to just read from that perspective, and channel that vibe into a message that is ultimately collectively resonating as well. So whether you have strong Sagittarius placements in your chart, you are closely connected or associated with Sagittarius energy, you like it, you might want to think about how to infuse it or integrate more of it into your vibe, respectively. That's what I'm here to share in this message today. I wanted to be clear on that because I don't want you to click off just because I'm saying Sagittarius and maybe that's not your sun, moon, or rising, or your Mercury, or your Venus, or your North Node, or whatever. But I guarantee you that there's Jupiter, as I like to say, being one of the biggest gift givers in the zodiac, would never leave anyone out. So, with all that being said, of course, in good form, I'm using Intuitive Kev's Kipperish deck because he's also a fire sign. He's a Leo though, but I really like how it feels to use that fire energy when I'm channeling specifically in this way. So that's what we're gonna do without further ado, okay? It is 3:05 on the clock, and I'm gonna get right to it right now. And hopefully I won't keep you too long. All right, here we go. Divinity, okay. 92, which reduces to an 11. Divinity, ancestors, ooh, come through. So some divine ancestors, or someone is an open channel for ancestors to transmit through, speak to, communicate with, guide, perhaps, direct. They look quite pleased, quite at ease here. Yeah. Maybe they're pleased with the clarity of the channel that has been established by someone who is devout in their divinity. It's like your frequency determines what frequency of ancestry or spiritual guidance can filter through you, can transmit, conduct through you. If you're living too low vibrationally, you may never hear from, or never clearly hear from ancestral energies or energies outside of yourself, predecessors, whether they're directly blood related or not, like some type of frequency that has an interest in speaking with you, conducting energy through you, may have all the ambition in the world, but if the channel isn't conducive to receive that intel, it'll just be lost information, So this is not that. This is a clear channel. As a matter of fact, 92 is an 11, 84 is a 12. So there's some progression or advancement here. Maybe even advancement of the ancestral agenda through the human vessel, and also then subsequently an advancement of the human vessel in the physical form. You know, that co-creative situation. You see how that kind of came on the side. So it's a little bit of a struggle how it plopped out. But let's see here. And we got 13. Yeah, so we got 11, 12, 13 with 58. Interesting here. But there's some confusion or illusion. Now, to, you know, not to neglect the opportunity to speak on the Sagittarius energy, we know the Sagittarius, generally a characteristic is, you know, like a pursuit of higher knowledge, of higher understanding, can be very spiritual, even religious in some ways, but definitely there's usually some connection to spiritual resonance in some way, and that doesn't again, it doesn't have to be exclusive to religion. It's usually just this relentless ambition to know what's beyond what you see, what you experience, what's more to be explored, beyond what you already know, you know, what you can already surmise from observation in your surroundings. It's going beyond the veil, or at least seeking to, or wanting to, even to be more, to have a higher understanding of self, you know, in the grander scheme of this life, you know. So divinity, starting here with divinity, makes a whole lot of sense, because a lot of times you'll find a Sagittarius that either has their own moral code or ethical standards, or is deeply devoted to an aspiration in some other regard in that form, you know, whether they are deeply devout in a religion, a practice, a way of being or thinking. But usually there's still always that undercurrent of wanderlust, you know, even if there's a security in one particular discipline or so, there's usually always room for curiosity and discovery, and deeper, more, not so much deeper, but more so higher perspective. So this makes sense. The confusion and illusion part, let me see. Let's see what's after that. Rich guy. So what we got here? $13 again, 13, 13, which would be 4, 4, 44. Let's say some rich guy here. Who's the one in confusion and delusion? That's so random. I mean, I'm sorry, confusion and illusion. Did I keep saying delusion? And expectation. So there's somebody waiting, somebody expecting a payout, or for something to pay off. Somebody playing dumb with this confusion part. Listen. A lot heavy on the masculine energy out here, which Sagittarius is a masculine sign. Assertive. Achievement, yeah. Assertive and achievements. And that's a 7. Let I just got to get one on this confusion. What is that? Who is that? That doesn't make any sense to me. That popped in and out. Please help poverty. I'm not going to take it because it popped back, but there's some lack of information or awareness here with this card. But where does this fit in? Everything else is so great. Great energy. Sweetheart? Okay. Which is also an 8. So somebody... I'm confused. I ain't gonna lie. Is somebody like blinded by some type of or obsessed with a sweetheart, or unsure about what to do regarding some type of object of affection, or either has impaired judgment on account of some type of lust or imbalanced desire. All right, let's keep going. Let me see if I can get some more clarity here. This is weird. I don't know. That's way too much. But here's relationship. There was a whole stack under that, though. Travel. Very Sagittarius as well with the travel card here. Like I said, always looking for an adventure, an escape, perhaps, and new discovery. But under divinity, 10, 11, 10. Because it could be some type of like astral projecting. Telepathic communication. I don't know why. I mean, that doesn't really connect to the travel part besides the information being transported. Information, say, from ancestors being transported through multiple dimensions or layers or veils or mediums or whatever. Oh, somebody could be a medium. There's that. So just a whole bunch of random shit. And I'm like, but what I'm seeing here is something possessive. But everything around, like the placement of that card is throwing me off for everything around. So I don't know if someone has maybe lost touch with their divinity. And there's There's an expectation to achieve something that is going to be extremely prosperous. But see, this person, the expectation, they have an expectation, but they're looking at the clock like, where is it already? And then we got this feminine energy now holding this achievement cup or trophy or chalice or whatever it is. So somebody has some type of there's some type of unrequited expectation. Maybe perhaps this is displaying a matter of somebody's choice. Like there was a choice between following the divine path. It could be the disparity between, say, an upright Sagittarius energy to compared to one that's maybe a lower vibrational or just maybe more carnally confined, perhaps not as evolved or progressive or matured at some point, or maybe someone forfeited their divine commitments and associations and therefore may have severed. I did go into a really long, not long, but quite I guess it just was pretty matter of fact, I guess, sharing about the spirituality and even philosophy often drive within that Sagittarius energy to know, to see, to be, to grow, to expand, to evolve. And if this is the difference between those two, it's like maybe someone either got veered off the path at some point in time and maybe got caught up in some type of lustful exchange or got distracted by some ambitions that were less in that vein of philosophy and spirituality, even religion, and more like all of this, well, not all of this, but the rich guy coming after particularly is very material, like exclusively material in this case. So maybe someone's pursuits, their wanderlust actually drove them onto a path that there was an anticipation to be of high achievement, but there's some aspect of themselves that was left behind. It's like both weren't given the space to exist cohesively, not cohesively, but to coexist. Yeah, they weren't given. There wasn't that somebody had made clearly. It feels like somebody made one choice of identity over another. And remember, I was saying that kind of leaves the ancestors kind of swinging in the wind when it comes time to like communicate or share or advance their agenda or, through the human vessel, because there's like a blockage or, a disconnect. If someone, consider how I'm saying that the natural character, more or less, of Sagittarius is to be philosophical and spiritual and things of that nature. Somebody may have left some authentic aspect of themselves neglected or malnourished, or may have dejected it or rejected it altogether for something more grounded and what they perceive to be more dependable and perhaps even stable. Because I've said in the past, like Sagittarius energy is It's not for everybody. I mean, it is for everybody. It can be, but not everybody is so openly accepting of that frequency, and well, more so embracing of it. And even those that try, if it's out of alignment with how that gets to filter or integrate with who you are naturally, it could be dangerous. It could be scary, to say the least. For you to almost have one foot on the earth and one off the ground almost all the time. So if you aren't comfortable living in that sort of like limbo in many ways, where, well, I'll just leave it there so I don't get too lengthy. You may make what you believe to be is the more sound choice to kind of like abandon that aspect of yourself, or that calling into that aspect of yourself, for fear alone, for fear alone. So, okay. But it seems like there was something like, it's like this sweetheart energy is kind of like almost alluring someone to stay perpetuated in this illusionary state, to perpetually obsess over this illusionary state against their own natural will or inclination, and certainly against some other agenda that's beyond them. So it kind of puts, I don't know, let's see. Let's what's on the ancestors? Imprisonment. Oh man. Yeah, like I was saying, like it's like if the channels are closed, you can't get a message in, or can't channel a message in. You just out here willy-nilly, or even support. We have no clue like how much of our protection and guidance and well-being is secured through forces that are unseen, and not just the almighty, of which some may subscribe to or not, but even those that are commissioned, or energies that are commissioned to advance even that agenda on behalf of universal ordinance. So imagine somebody like like disconnecting or disabling themselves from their lifeline in a world where your well-being at least depends on it. Maybe even your survival depends on it, but certainly your advancement does. And here's another 11. Imprisonment. Good God. And if that ain't the antithesis of Sagittarius energy, good Lord. You want to punish a Sag, put them in a cage. Lock them up, make them feel confined and stuck, physically, spiritually, mentally. That's the pun. House arrest. You know what I mean? If not actual jail or prison, like, we're being stuck in a situation that is not ideal is not conducive for you to grow or thrive or learn, advance. That's definitely, that's a harsh sentence. But here it's under the ancestors, so I feel like it's more connected to them and what they're like, otherworldly beings or multidimensional beings that have a particular vested interest in humanity, and maybe even specifically into their own descendants, having their hands tied to do anything, like almost observing someone kind of like go veer off onto the wrong path or makes choices that are not going to have, the best outcome, in the long run. It might be a great short-term return, or it might seem like an advancement in the way that the world perceives it to be or projects it to be, but there's a missing element or piece here that is a great detriment to some greater cause. Jupiter energy, big picture, expansive, seeing almost from a bird's eye view, or at least wanting to. And this is like the eyes and intel that someone has or could have at their disposal that is not able to be accessed, or not able to access the way that they would like to, not able to integrate or what's the word, like I'm hearing spawn. I don't know what that means. Spawn. Energetically, maybe that's the holdup for those that are open vessels. There is a spawning that can get to happen from multidimensional beings, and again, in an energetic way. Travel here representing that advancement or progressiveness that doesn't get to happen otherwise. So you can have all of the spoils of your carnal senses of the world, but here, why someone might still be waiting on this ultimate feeling of achievement and sense of success, that satisfaction of success, is because the way that they have pursued it, or what the value that they've assigned to it, is something quite different than what it actually is, at least for that particular individual. Maybe not overall, but more or less, yes. But something very prescriptive for someone is not being transmitted clearly. So they'll be waiting for the rest of their life to feel that final, like, I made it moment. And in the meantime, they may actually be sitting waiting for that moment to dawn on them, and be observing other people, wondering like, well, where's mine? If I didn't say that already, I feel like I did. Like, any day now, my ship should be coming in. But the ships that they're waiting for are somewhere lost at sea, or lost in transition, maybe lost in actual translation. Because, as I said before, the intel that is coming in, the channel is distorted. So what someone's picking up is not what the divine is putting down, clearly. And maybe the evidence of that has not always been so certain, so apparent, I guess I should say. But it's starting to be clear now, especially the more someone waits on something that they feel like they should have received, or at this point should have had a long time ago. Only to see it go somewhere else, or just never, to feel like they're almost waiting in vain. I don't know. There's a very foundational reason for that. And that's something that was, I keep want to say forfeited, but it's not forfeit. It's like surrendered, or it's like somebody just kind of gave something up. Like, I don't need that. I need this. Or that path is all right, but this is what this I can see, this I can touch, this doesn't scare me, this motivates me. Divinity, ancestral shit, not having your both feet on the ground all the time, not really, being able to control your environment or control your outcomes, which is definitely this over here. You can't always control the intel that comes through your psyche. You can control how you respond or react to it. And in this case, it feels like somebody decided to turn it off. It's like they prefer it to be more in the bliss of ignorance to that part of them and invest the whole of them into something that seemed more sure, that seemed more grounded, I guess, perhaps secure. Legal. Sheesh. All right, we got something legal going on here. Could be some type of justice energy. Which came up yesterday as well. Was it justice? Yeah, it was. I think it was a Hierophant and justice that came up in the message yesterday that just posted today, by the way. If you were confused, I did post it late because I forgot to actually post it yesterday. Which is a 3. U.S. Department of something. So now we got, so it's almost like some type of regulation now. Is someone tried their hand at what they felt would be more profitable, maybe even to some degree thought in their own ignorance or delusion that it would be more prosperous. And it heavy on the profitable for sure. So it says with the rich guy, but there's something there's a consequence here for it with legal, whether it's actually a legal infraction or a consequence, or there's been an infraction on the spirit man, as I said, that was left behind, forsaken. That was the word that I was trying, forsaken. That's a strong energy. Something about something being forsaken, or someone forsaking themselves, forsaking the divine, forsaking their predecessors, angels, forsaking the path that they may actually have known would be the higher road, let's say. And it turns out that now, there's an effect here for their carnal ambitions. And let's see what's more on that. Okay, starting to come a little clearer to me, I think. Number 3, commitment. Yeah, there's some type of binding here, or something that somebody is aligned with, that is either contractually binding or just by their agreement with it. It feels like you can't really get out of it, or it would, there's a certain process that like how when you get married, you don't just, I mean, you can separate for sure, but that legal document is more than just a piece of paper. You're connected to this person for tax purposes. Um, you know, you can't get married again if, well, you're not supposed to legally. Hold on. So it's like before you can now maybe move on to something, like say somebody had a change of mind or heart or perspective, but they already entangled themselves into something that is binding at this point. Maybe somebody would want to return back to their more authentic self, or something that is more satisfying to their authentic being. But what they have now aligned themselves with is not something that you can just undo effortlessly. Like, even if you get a marriage annulled, there's still a process, paperwork, timing, time, energy, maybe even money that needs to be invested to undo something that no longer serves you. And this could even be to undo trouble or consequences or decisions that someone ultimately has put themselves in, even if it's just by way of their choice of association, let alone their own activity here, that may not be absolute or irreversible, but that again does have a process or some type of backlash, or imagine having to split assets now because you've contracted yourself with another person, where it was just you before, but now you actually have to be mindful of how someone else is affected, or what somebody else wants or needs on account of that separation, if it's even granted, because there's also the necessity for there to be agreement in some way, shape, or form with even that dissolution. You can't just dissolve a union or a marriage or a contract until both parties are more or less on the same page in some way, shape, or form. And usually in terms like this, where there's an intimate connection or entanglement, even in some case, is not as much harder to get out than it is to get in. So somebody could even be waiting on something that they felt entitled to by way of some contract or agreement, or their investment, devout investment into a thing. And like I said, it's like, it ain't coming. I don't know. It doesn't, that's what I sense, that I don't know, something about the look in those eyes of this picture is just, that's what I'm drawing. I feel like they're let me see, let me get one more. I need to try to do one more row. It's like pulling teeth for this now. I swear. Take this. Karmic masculine. Look at him. I should have pulled it up so you could really get into his eyes. As I just talked about this person's eyes, this guy, he looked either high or demented or something here. It's like it's given that some really is just to me telling me that somebody forfeited that they thought would be a sure shot, a maybe even a fast track to success, has turned out to be more trouble than it's worth and more confining than it's worth. It's like somebody being in like a living in captivity, or at least the situation of their life feels like that. They could be in a marriage that they don't really want to be in. They could be making money or in business in a way that they rather not. It could even be illegal or something, sketchy. They could be living a lifestyle that is not conducive to their highest selves or their supreme selves. That's very contrary again. And if this is the energy you're in, you're not getting any help or support from the right kind of ancestral energy. You might get a hell of a lot of support. I didn't finish that thought earlier, like when I was saying where you are is the level of intel that, like, the clearance that you have. And if you're operating only in your lower nature, then that's the energy that you're going to attract, or that's what you qualify to transmit, or what qualifies to transmit through you. So you could get all the help and support you need from those ancestors or multidimensional energies that feed on this frequency, that love it. They'll keep feeding you and advancing you as long as you can stay on that level, and they can keep, there's an even exchange there, well, fruitful exchange, more for them even for you, because the fruitful exchange for you will turn out to be very short-lived, unfulfilling at best, and unsustainable, maybe even detrimental at the very worst, and to the point where who you were ordained to be, maybe even designed to be, maybe even had the intention to be at some point in the beginning, is lost in the sauce. And this is where you get dropped off. Being successful at being karmic, like being the best karmic, and in this case, toxic person you can possibly be. That's what you have. And look, I said that I keep it real, didn't I? Well, if you've seen other messages in the Sagittarius vein, Sagittarius in the low frequency is definitely a piece of work. Lustful, could be overindulgent, dogmatic, for their own agenda and their own beliefs, kind of dismissing anything else or anyone else. Could be promiscuous, hard to commit or slow to commit. What else? Just frivolous all over the place, no real direction, no, like, impulsive. Yeah, impulsive. And we know all that energy could definitely lead you into spaces and places that are only going to continue to perpetuate that same vibe. It's not going to be healing. It's not really going to be advancing in a spiritual way or in an energetic way, probably just physically. So this is heavy on some type of like low frequency Sag energy that has disconnected themselves from their true nature, their original being. Somewhere along the way, somebody's gotten lost and misguided, distracted, and they're overstimulated as well. This is way too much going on in a few cards. Between imprisonment, legal commitment, karmic masculine, it's like, what are we doing here? Let me see what I got. 45 minutes. I don't even know if I want to continue with this. Let me just clarify the lower frequency things. I'll do imprisonment, I'll do legal, and I'll do karmic masculine. Let's see what we got. Because I'm not satisfied with what I'm seeing here. It doesn't feel finished to me, but I also don't really know where we're going either. You know, like, again, that feeling of just being lost, just doing anything, saying anything. I'm not just saying anything. I swear I'm not. But there's a lack of satisfaction that I feel with this message. Maybe that's the transmission of the energy, where it's like, for all the energy I'm pouring in to hear, to understand, to transmit, it's still like, okay, something still feels empty, void. You know, I don't feel a closure here. And maybe that's the transmission of where someone is. And that is very karmic in the masculine energy, which is the incitement to always be overly ambitious, to be always pursuing something outside of yourself, but not for the purposes of advancing yourself purely, but for like, almost, what is it called? Like pleasure seeking, or sensational purposes, like to tantalize your sensory, you know what I mean? Something about that here. And you could never get enough in that regard when that's what you're when that's your what you're driven for. You'll always feel like there's something lacking or missing when there's no sense of contentment. And in the upright Sagittarius energy, although there's that word wanderlust, there are bouts of contentment, especially when you've reached a particular conclusion, or maybe even a destination, or understanding, maybe understanding. It's not like there's no satisfaction there for a Sagittarius. It's just like there's always an intrigue into something else or about something else. That doesn't mean that there can't be any settlement with one thing or another. There absolutely can be, but there's just always something even more interesting to consider. Like, once you have explored, or even while you're exploring, sometimes one thing is like, oh, what's that over there? What's that about? And it's all in the highest vibration. It's the intention is to enhance yourself, you know, to enhance your presence in this life experience, you know, to enhance the experience of life itself. So there can be satisfaction, there can be contentment found before another adventure is off. But I'm getting the sense that this is the adverse of that energy, where someone's wanderlust has ultimately, like, driven them to a point of insatiability. Is that a word? Like an insatiable thirst or lust for life, that in the way that they're looking to fulfill it will never be, because it's not pure. Oof, health concern. Yeah, it's like it's a poor communication channel here, which I've said many times over. But it's like, somebody, I said before, it could be a matter of survival, you know, literally could be a matter of life and death, the intel that someone is missing out on because they just, like, dropped the call or dropped the line, or, you know what I mean, like, cut the line of communication there by way of their choices. It's like the ancestors can't spawn energetically, you know, they can't conduct energy or information through a sick channel, you know, or a channel that is is not clear. And ultimately, it could make for a great depreciation even in the physical vessel of someone, because they're not, like, they're missing some, it's like missing key nutrients, not necessarily your diet or, or anything like that in the physical form, but it's like these key ingredients or nutrients are the unseen aspects of that, are just, I was about to say even more necessary, but at least just as necessary in your human vitality as anything you can touch or smell or taste or see or even hear audibly. Because that entails what ultimately could even keep you from reaching a state such as this, but definitely could be resourced as a remedy or a solution. Yeah, that's the energy that kind of, like I said, is very directive. Or maybe I said that the last message, because something in this vein came up then. Very directive and supportive to almost keep you from the pitfalls of humanity that are quite easy to fall into, honestly, for any of us, without that bird's eye view. And somebody just completely cut that channel off, or they hook themselves up to, like I said, a lower frequency. Look how that's hooked up to her, but she still looks sick. So hooking themselves up to lower dimensional energies and vibrations that may be familiar or familial, but that don't have the highest good of the vessel in mind. They're only after what will continue to fuel and feed the vibration they're in to continue to survive, to have a vessel to channel through, to you know to vicariously experience that mortality in a very immortal way through a vessel that they no longer have access to personally. So it's like having old karmic ancestors or energetic energies that are like, "Woo, we got one, boys, let's go." Or girls, whatever, like we got one. We can make ourselves at like squatters, like they can make themselves at home here for as long as no one notices, or hell, for as long as they like, until there's some authority, i.e., the vessel itself, the commander of the vessel itself, that would say, like, no, this, y'all gotta go, or this energy has to go, or I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be toxic or karmic. Like I've learned that lesson. I'm ready to advance to the next level. I'm ready to expand, to grow, to understand even why I've lived a certain way, or I've carried on a certain way, or I've made certain decisions, and then observe. This is very Sagittarius, mind you. Observe how that and my choices and my decisions have created the circumstances that are very unfavorable for me. Like, it'll take a Sagittarius to be quite uncomfortable to then decide, like, oh no, something else got to give. And the good thing about it is there is energy, there's boldness, there's ambition to make the necessary change, but there has to be the awareness and the acknowledgement first, and then, of course, the willingness to do whatever is necessary or needed. But for as long as someone wants to stew, again, with this expectation that this is it'll work out for them. And some, you know, at some, like, this is working for me. If there's no alarm, there's no there's no particular force to do anything, then why change? Why stop? Especially if it feels good and that's what you know, and that's your number one priority anyway, which in the karmic energy that would be whatever feels good to the carnal senses in the moment or at the time. And the hammer. Did I say legal? Yeah, I was doing legal. And hammer. Jay, I can hear you. Sorry. He's playing his VR. He does this thing that I don't mind when I'm in the room, but in here it's distracting. All right, so enamor, deep love, affection. Like, I don't know if that's what that is as much as, you know, it's like the legal system. You don't want legal to be enamored with you. You know, that means they on your ass, or there's some type of attention that's being drawn to a situation that is a cause for some type of response or some type of call to action or affirmative action. I don't know. Let's get one more on karmic masculine, and I'm gonna wrap this up. Twin flame. Well, gee willikers. Is it really a twin flame when one party is a karmic masculine? I mean, it can be, but it's not the type that is that type of twin flame and connection that teaches you a lesson, which makes sense with the karmic, you know, energy here, that teaches you a lesson more than anything, like that love of a lifetime that taught you all that you ever needed to know about yourself and about relationships and about how you operate in them, what you want, what you don't want, what you will what you call it, tolerate, what you don't, what you accept and what you don't. There's something here about that with twin flame. Yeah, and it could even be, again, someone, I mean, to have commitment with an actual twin flame, like somebody that you actually are kind of designed to do life with, at least some leg of the journey, you know what I mean, in a very productive and prosperous way, is a great privilege and an honor. And if that's something, and it feels like somebody has kind of forfeited that right because of how they're being. Or they did forfeit, you know, the privilege to be in a dynamic such as this, whether it's actual human physical or just like an ideal circumstance or situation, like tailor-made to you, exactly what you would need or want and desire, you know, holistically. That's what the twin flame card is represented to me, like something very stable, grounding. And you certainly, you won't hold on to that for very long as a karmic energy in that dynamic, whatever it is, a job, an opportunity, a collaboration, co-creation, a relationship, friendship. Something will have to give if you're not willing to actually match the energy of what that privilege calls for. And to me, like, all of it is just saying that somebody just didn't have their priorities in line. That's what it comes down to. They didn't have their they don't have their priorities in line. What they thought was going to advance their chief ambitions it just wasn't. It just ain't all that. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, what time is it? One on the dot. All right, let's see what's on the bottom. Obsession, which is another 11. And what? Opposition. Yeah, they got themselves entangled in something that is not what they wanted. Not what they would have signed up for had they truly known all the aspects of it. What they forsook what they have forsaken in order to have something else or someone else or another experience is like, there's a stark comparison between the two. And like I said, now they're finding themselves so deeply entangled that it's going to take way more to free themselves. I mean, again, a Sagittarian nightmare would be to be caught up in any type of entanglement that you feel like there's no way out of, or that the circumstances are so strenuous and confining and stressful that before you could go anywhere to relieve yourself or liberate yourself, you would have so much to do, to manage, to finally be free. And all of that is like grunt work. It's laborious. Is it laborious or laborious? Laborious? I don't know. And with less support, because like I said, you in the lower frequency that someone has perpetuated, the alignment that they've made with certain frequencies has no interest, no vested interest in their release or their advancement or enhancement of experience, because they're living off of what best suits their vitality or its vitality, whatever we're talking about here. So there's not going to be any support in that regard. And the only support system that would ultimately be willing and able to help you free yourself, they're over there and freaking on in-house suspension. Or I don't know, like they're not at liberty to get involved. All they can do is watch and observe, maybe pray for someone's enlightenment or awakening, realization of themselves and their surrounding. And not even just that, but now at this point, like I said, with the grave disconnect here dimensionally, what someone has aligned themselves with is not going to support their best interest, even once they become aware and realize, like, I gotta get out of this. It's going to always feel like, like you're, well, not always, but there's a point where it feels like you're like trying to, run through sand. or trying to trek through mud. As soon as you get ahead of one thing, something else will be pulling you back. Or as soon as you release one aspect, here comes something else that you forgot about. And now you got to figure that part out. Or some long, drawn out divorce that gets ugly and that gets, where maybe somebody won't want to sign the papers, or they're not willing to agree to those terms. So until there is agreement, or resolution, you're still stuck. You're still attached to this person. And even if it's not physically, the energy that is still attached is infectious. And until someone can completely relieve themselves, again, with very little support, physically or spiritually, they can't even have access to that that premium resource of relief that they, that's kind of on reserve, hopefully, in the best case scenario, until they get rid of all of this. Somebody might even be ready to get back, like may even, see the era of their choices and their own ways at this point, and want to get back to something that's more grounded, even becoming whole within themselves. And now they got to get through all of this that they created, maybe legal issues, again, a bad relationship or poor associations, toxic associations, some type of opposition or enemy force against them, not to mention what's happening internally or dimensionally that they're connected to, having to get that energy out of here too, because there's an obsession here where something is, like I said, is not willing to go easily or quietly in spirit or in truth. Try to maintain whatever semblance of resources they have left to survive, not to mention their health is taking a toll because of all of this, and they feel like their hands are bound and locked down. But then there could even still be some emotional attachment to this because they've invested so much in it as well. So that's like the confusion aspect here with the that card there, where it's like, it's no good for you and you have every reason to route out, but you also have a whole lot of uh of strongholds that would make that hard for you to do so easily. And then until then, it feels like, an impossible task. And the thing that would expedite your efforts is over here on the sidelines. And God forbid somebody actually knowing that they have that resource and that privilege and access, but not being able to actually tap into it. It's there, but you feel nothing from that point. So you still, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. That ultimately, like I said, it's like somebody might be in expectation for some cavalry or relief to help them that's never coming, like I said, because they can't. Their hands are tied behind their backs at this point until someone can do for themselves ultimately what they have forsaken, that was being done for them to a large degree. And they may not have even like I said, you may not even realize how supported and helped and protected you are from forces unseen until you don't have those forces anymore. Then it's very evident and apparent, how vulnerable you actually are. And that is a more scary place to be now in hindsight for someone than once upon a time when they felt like being, tapping into their natural spirituality and their inclination to pursue that expression of themselves, where they may have actually also met opposition or misunderstanding or resistance. Is still far more grounded, supportive, supported, and what's the word I'm looking for? Secure than anything they could put their hands on in this earth. Those that find themselves at the hindsight part of the experience will be wishing to have that clearance of intel and protection and security again. And I bet you that they would never forsake it again. They would reverence it like, you know, the precious privilege and gift that it is, even though it's a divine right as well. Like, it's what comes along with the territory of spirituality expressed through humanity, but there's still something that gets to be done through you, the human vessel, to maintain that connection, to nurture that connection. So when you do the very opposite and say, F that connection, I'm good over here, oh, you gonna fuck around and find out sooner or later that no, you were not. You never were. It was all an illusion, and your own delusion as well. So that was a hard one. I ain't gonna lie to you. That was a hard one. But this is the message, I suppose. Oh man, it may not be easy being a Saggy at times, and it may not be palatable to other more dominantly, expressive energies outside of that or other than that, but I don't even know what to say. Because a lot of times with Sagittarius energy from the outside looking in, people think that, like, sometimes my experience is they think that, you're lucky, or and sometimes you can be, but there's a cosmic science to that as well, because it's the mentality of a Sagittarius that makes them lucky, that confidence and ambition and optimism. But it has to be driven in a positive direction, in a prosperous direction, because it can be driven profitably, and you will yield results. It can be. You will see physical return for your efforts, because that's also the response to that frequency energetically. It's very attractive, but you could be attracting all the wrong things quite successfully, triumphantly, as a matter of fact. And if you're particularly indulgent, especially in a karmic way, it'll be just one big adventure for you, one rabbit hole to the next to see where it goes. But the core of your being, which is the gift of the frequency, is to always be aspiring to be better, to think higher, to see above the fray, to find that experience of life that is holistically fulfilling and not just temporarily so. That's going to just continue to add value, even each experience that you pursue, because that happens, but it will continuously just add value to the overall quality of life that you're looking to create for the long term, in the long run, to sum up, your life experience. The only value that this has in the Sagittarius energy is lesson, to have learned your lesson, and again, to be able to transmute that energy into something that is prosperous and not just profitable. Profitable will be great too, but prosperous so that you can actually advance to beyond this position. That's the advantage of the experience that I'm speaking of. But for anyone that just continues to perpetuate that frequency, they ultimately come to a point where it bites back or wears down on the vessel in ways that, are probably just as in some ways just as accelerated of a decline or depreciation as the ambition itself was. And that's the danger. Because you can get yourself into some shit, but how quickly can you get out before it consumes you? That's the question. So stay on the upside of that frequency if you can help it. Let that lust for life be filtered into something fortifying, if at all possible. Something that truly has a long-standing, a long-term resonance, and a value and nurturing that is not just going to be a great story at the end of the day. Because shoot, the way somebody's going, they might not be able to live to tell it. Or they might be too incapacitated at some point to be able to tell it for themselves. And then it's left for somebody else to create a narrative. So, I don't know. All right, I'm going to leave this here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with peace.